Hi students, welcome to the part 2 of Gauss theorem video series. So let's begin with the proof of the Gauss theorem where we have left the chapter. With a quick revision, the Gauss theorem says that is the total electric flux through any closed surface is equals to the net charge enclosed by that closed surface, or better to say Gaussian surface, divided by the epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. For this, we'll begin with let us take a charge plus q which is inside some closed surface. Let this charge be inside a closed surface of total area A, and we want to prove this, the Gauss theorem. Let the charge q be situated at a point O, let this point be O, and choose another point P here. Okay. For this point, we are going to apply the Gauss theorem. So let us take a small area surrounded this point P. Okay. Let this be small area surrounded the point P, and let the area of this thing will be dA. Since any area can be represented by a vector area, so what we will take? We'll take a vector which is perpendicular to this small surface A, and let this be this. So this is dA vector. The length of this vector is equals to the area of this surface which you have chosen, dA, and its direction is perpendicular to this surface, and this dA is the part of this bigger surface. This line is not a closed line, it is a surface. So with this big surface, from that big surface I have chosen an area dA. Okay. So let's connect this point O and point P like this and extend this thing a little bit. And let this distance from O to P will equal to R. So what we will think, we are going to apply the Gauss theorem for this setup. Okay. Now let E be the electric field intensity. On your screen you can see. Let E be the electric field intensity at the point P due to a charge Q. Okay. Okay. So due to this charge Q, the electric field intensity at this point, let it be E. Okay, let this be E. And the direction of electric field will be along the line joining these two. Since this is a plus charge and test charge, if you take the test charge Q naught, then the direction will be away. So let this will be this is the direction of electric field vector E. Till here everything is okay. Okay. So now we are going to apply this, or not apply the Gauss theorem, we are going to prove the Gauss theorem. So what the thing we will calculate? We will calculate the flux phi E. Okay. And we'll prove that phi E for this thing is equals to Q upon epsilon naught. Okay. Let us calculate what the phi E will be. Phi E will be E dot dA. This is the definition of the flux, electric flux phi E. E dot dA. Okay. So with this thing, one more thing, this is not the total flux. Since we are only discussing about this small area, so this is d phi E. So when we'll talk about the total flux through this entire bigger area, then we'll talk about phi E. Right now it is only a phi E. So what we are going to see, first we'll expand this dot product E dot dA. Okay. Okay. So what is the electric field at this point P? from O to P, what is the electric field? Electric field from the Gauss theorem, we know that 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. So electric field magnitude will be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. And which charge is creating this? This charge Q. So it will be Q upon R square. Okay, this is the formula from the Coulomb's law. We know for a point charge, the electric field at a particular point can be calculated as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q upon R square. Okay, so we'll put it that thing in this. So we'll get what? We'll get 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q upon, and this will be expanded as E d a cos theta. Dot product is expanded like this thing, and this is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon Q upon R square. And what else we are getting? We getting the dA cos theta. So this is constant, Q is constant, R is constant. This whole thing will come out outside of this integration sign, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught and Q. Okay. For the time R is also constant. For the time being, let the R inside it. So we get dA cos theta upon R square. Here, if you think, what is dA cos theta? When I was explaining omega was equals to I upon R square. So when we change to d omega, we are getting dA cos theta upon R square. From the explanation of solid angle, it has all been explained in the first series, first video of this series. This is the part 2. I'm not going to explain this thing again. So dA cos theta upon R square is nothing but this solid angle. Solid angle what? We are talking about this. This is the surface dA. So if you connect the boundaries, so this angle will be d omega by the definition. So what we will get? We will get Q upon, and since we have applied the integration sign, so this no longer will be called. We have, after applying this thing, we will be becoming a. So for the time, forget about the LHS at this moment. So Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught, we are getting d omega, and d omega, if you integrate d omega is a solid angle, and the total solid angle of any closed surface will be equals to 4 pi. So Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught, here you will get 4 pi, and this will be Q upon epsilon naught. What we have is, we were expanding this thing, we were solving this thing. So integration of E dot dA is equals to Q upon epsilon naught, and is equals to phi A. Okay. Once you apply the integration sign, this no longer be d phi E. Okay. When you are just reading E dot dA, then this is d phi E. Once you put this integration signs, means you are talking about the entire surface, then this no longer be d phi E. This is not in this particular case, but any. If you are talking about discriminantal any entity, then that will be d. If you are talking about the whole quantity, that will become your E. Okay. So where you will write down d phi E. D phi E should be is equals to E dot dA. Now this d phi A is correct because E dot dA is only for a small area, then this is d phi E. Once we put the integration sign, this side no longer becomes d phi E, it becomes a total flux. So this is equals to this, and this is equals to this, and phi E is equals to Q upon epsilon naught, Q net, which charge, which is inside this surface. So net charge inside that surface divided by epsilon naught is equals to the, and this is the Gauss theorem, and this is the proof of the Gauss theorem. This whole thing, this is equals to this, electric flux is equals to E dot dA integration, and that is equals to the total charge or the net charge. Why I am putting so much emphasis on net? Because council deduct marks for writing total. If you write total, the council will deduct marks. So better to write down net. Okay. I explained this thing earlier also in my lectures. So this is the proof of your Gauss theorem. Okay. Now we will apply this Gauss theorem to calculate our electric field in various scenarios. For your council syllabus, it talks about, there are three things. It talks about infinite line of charge, electric field or Gauss theorem applied for an infinite line of charge, uniformly charged infinite plane thin sheet, and third point, a thin hollow spherical shell. These 3 points we will discuss in our topic. We'll apply the Gauss theorem, we'll deduce the electric field formula by applying the Gauss theorem for these 3 cases. And Gaussian surface, I have already explained you what are the importance of Gaussian surface. Once again on your screen, there is a quick review for the Gaussian surface property. Okay, what kind? It should be a closed surface so that a clear distinction can be made between points that are inside the surface, on the surface and outside the surface. Means which kind of closed surface you will choose while calculating electric field or while applying the Gauss theorem. Those surface should be very specific in their properties, and these properties are mentioned on the screen. Second, this surface must pass through the point where the electric field is to be calculated. At what point we want to calculate the electric field? That point should be on the Gaussian surface which we will assume or which we will decide. Third, the surface must have shape according to the symmetry of the source. This will explain in my next example. And you can read the fourth point also. Okay, stop the video and read this fourth point. So let's begin with our next topic, that is electric field due to infinite line of charge, a wire of charge you can say. Now we are moving to the application of the Gauss theorem or Gauss law, what we have learned. Okay. We have taken an infinite line of charge, let us say positive charge, a thin, uniform and infinite. It extends up and down infinitely. We want to find the electric field due to this line of charge at any point in space, say like here. We want the electric field at this point due to this charge distribution. We will take the use of or the help of our Gauss theorem. Okay. Let this point be P. Let this point be P. Okay. What we have learned, that we can apply the Gauss theorem by considering a closed Gaussian surface. Second point, if you remember, the surface, the Gauss surface should pass through the point. So whatever surface we are going to make is sphere, cylindrical, cubical, conical, any surface, it must contain this point P if we are fulfilling the Gauss theorem criteria. And that surface should have some symmetry with respect to the origin of the field, that is the charge. Okay. So the best I can imagine is a cylindrical surface. Let the surface be symmetrical. Let us shift a little bit over here. Let this point be over here. So our cylinder will be small. Move this point over here. Let this point be over here. P. So now and this is a cylinder. This is a cylindrical surface. So we have contained, this is the wire. Wire is of infinite length. This wire is of infinite length. It is infinitely long. We have taken a small portion. So what much wire is inside this cylinder? Let the length of the cylinder from here to here, let it be L. So in the L length, this much charge is contained. So our cylinder is containing only this much charge. The wire is infinitely long, doesn't care about it. This much cylinder contains this much charge equal to the length L. And due to this charge, what is the field at this point P? And now if you can consider, our point P is on the Gaussian surface. Okay? Our point is on the Gaussian surface. And this is the first criteria. The point should be on the Gauss surface, for which we are creating, neglect the noise which is coming in the video, as there will be some noise from the neighbor surroundings. Okay. So as this is a cylinder, this is cylindrical. It's like a cylindrical. This is a wire and we have chosen a cylinder. The wire is passing through the cylinder and the point is on the cylinder. This is the three-dimensional explanation. So let this marker be the wire, and it is contained in the cylinder, and this cylindrical surface is our Gauss surface, and the point for which we are talking about the field, and that point is on the surface of the cylinder, the curved surface of the cylinder. Okay, and then clearly you can see the wire is the middle of the cylinder, or better to say the axis of the cylinder. So through all points, this side P, this side P, all these points are at a particular distance. Let the distance be R. Okay, what I am trying to say, that if this is the wire and this is the point, so you chose the point over here, here, everywhere the point is R distance from this wire. Got it? And this is the symmetry of the, now our Gaussian surface is holding a symmetry with respect to this charge distribution. Okay, let's apply the Gauss theorem. Let's surround this point the total area, the total curved area. Got it? The total curved area. That means what I am talking about. A cylinder has curved surface area, the top and bottom surface area. So we are talking about this curved surface area. Let this curved surface area equal to A. Okay, and our point P, let us take from this total surface area, let us take a small surface of magnitude dA, and its area vector will be outside. Got it? What I have done, I have taken a point P on the surface, and from surrounding this point P, I have taken a small surface, and let this area element be dA, and the vector will be outward. Okay, perpendicular to the surface will be always outward. Why I am skipping the term? Because every area can be represented as a vector area. What is the criteria? You will take the vector, magnitude will be equal to the magnitude of area, and direction will be perpendicular to the surface. So dA vector will be this. Got it? dA vector will be this. So the electric field lines, due to this positive, from the positive charge the lines of forces goes outward. So electric field lines will be like this, not no slanting, but like this. So the electric field at this point P, let that electric field, because we want to calculate that electric field, where is the director? We want to calculate that electric field. Okay, these lines which I have drawn, I just wanted to show you for example. So the electric field at this point P will be E. Let it be E, and the direction, its direction will also be radially outward, along the radius and outward. So the E and A, the dA and E are parallel. If this is the dA vector and lines of forces are also going outward, so dA and E are parallel. Got it? Now let's apply our Gauss theorem for this thing. Okay, what we will get? Gauss theorem, apply E dot dA, this is our Gauss theorem. E dot dA is equals to what? E dA cos theta. And what is the angle over here? Since they are parallel, so theta is equals to 0. So what we will get? Cos 0, and cos 0 is 1. This will come is equals to E dA. Got it? This is the flux passing through. Since we have taken dA, so what we will write down? D phi E. Okay, flux passing through this only dA surface, that is d phi E. But we want the flux passing through this total surface area. Flux will be passing through here, up and down. Okay, but what is the problem with up and down? This is the curved surface, this is the top surface area, and the area vector will be in this manner, and the field lines in this manner. What is the angle? 90. If you take the E dot dA for the top and bottom surface, theta will be equals to 90 degree and cos 90 is 0. So there is no electric flux from the top and bottom surface. How, why I am saying this thing? Phi is equals to E dot dA cos 90 for the top surface and same for the bottom surface. So what you will get? 0. You will get 0. So the total flux means the lines of forces passing through a particular area is only for the curved surface. Got it? So our phi E, not d phi E, will be equals to integration of E dA. Since the electric field, why we have chosen the symmetrical surface? We want to take this E outside. If you move this surface, from here to here, its distance from the center, its distance from this axis is still the same. Got it? It's still the same. And so our electric field, wherever you move on this surface, will be same due to this line charge. Why? Because it is a symmetrical configuration. If you move away, take a bigger cylinder, electric field will change. If you take a smaller cylinder, electric field will change. But for this particular cylinder, if you move on this surface, the electric field is going to be constant. And since it is constant, you can take it outside this integration sign. This is area integral now, dA. Okay. So what is the total surface area? Integration of this dA is only this surface. If you integrate it, means you are talking about the whole area. What is the total curved surface area? The perimeter is 2 pi r and you multiply it by length, you will get the total curved surface area. Okay. And the charge distribution, how much charge per unit length is over there? Let it be lambda. Lambda coulombs per meter. That is, say 2 coulomb per meter, 3 coulomb per meter, 5 coulomb per meter. I am taking lambda coulomb per meter. This is what? This is the line charge density. This is not a new concept. You have already studied in the Coulomb's law topic. So we are getting phi E is equals to your E and 2 pi r L. Okay. We have calculated the phi E, and by the Gauss theorem, this phi E, applying Gauss theorem. Till now we have only calculated flux. Now we are applying the Gauss theorem. Phi E is equals to Q net upon epsilon naught. What is the total charge inside the cylinder? The line charge density is lambda. So the Q is equals to what? Lambda into L. But per meter is lambda charge. So in L meters, what is the charge? Lambda into L. So apply this part over here. You will get E is equals to, in place of Q net, you will get lambda L, and okay, I write down the complete step, 2 pi r L. So your electric field will be equals to lambda L upon 2 pi r L, and get cancelled out. Your electric field will be what? Lambda upon 2 pi r. So the electric field is coming lambda upon 2 pi r. Got it? Want to write in vector form? R cap, because the electric field along this radius line. So R cap, just to give the direction, no complete bar, only the cap, the unit vector. This is the electric field due to a line charge distribution. That is 2 pi. One thing I have skipped, very sorry about one thing, but I have skipped. Q net upon epsilon naught. Here will be epsilon naught also. Okay, and same for this part also. Here will be epsilon naught also, and here also we'll get epsilon naught. And final formula will be your 2 pi epsilon naught and R. Now this is correct. Okay, because the Gauss theorem is Q net upon epsilon naught. Phi E is equals to E 2 pi RL, E 2 pi RL. Q net is equals to lambda L divided by epsilon naught. Shift this thing in the denominator, lambda L upon 2 pi R, L get cancelled down, and epsilon naught. So 2 pi R, better to switch the place, 2 pi epsilon naught R upon R into this thing. So electric field we have calculated with the help of Gauss theorem. Same thing we have calculated in the Coulomb's law with the help of Coulomb's law by that force Q upon net. Got it? If you want to calculate the what to say, Coulomb's law, so force will be what? Q into E. You can get that equation soon. So our electric field is varying with respect to lambda is constant, 2 pi constant, epsilon naught constant, E is varying with the R. So the graph is E is dependent of R and it is like this. This is the variation of the electric field due to infinite line of charge. It changes with the R. Means as you go away from the R, the electric field decreases. As you come close to the line, the R reduces, the electric field will increase. It's an inverse relationship. Okay, that's all for this part. Okay, in the third part, we'll discuss about the electric field using the Gauss theorem for plane sheet of charge and then for a thin spherical shell. 3 cases are in your course, so we'll discuss that. Okay, thank you.